Alrighty, welcome back, everybody, to game number 3 and game number last here between Chicago and Cincinnati. Chicago's going to be over on the blue side and Cincinnati on red. I'm going to be taking up play-by-play, and Rapid will be graciously filling in for some color casting today, all the way from Korea. And we've got quite a series on our hands. Game number 1, Chicago had a relatively definitive game. They did end up with quite a good scoreline in terms of kills. They had, as Rapid said at the end of the last match, double the kills of Cincinnati, but then Cincinnati struck back fiercely in game 2 with a just insane early game where they were up by 6k gold by the 15-minute mark, which is absolutely crazy. Do you think that a lot of that came down to the draft, Rapid, or do you think maybe that was more gameplay?
Some of it is just the way that the cookie crumbles, but I think there's a lot more going to it. We saw in game number 1 that the Varus was a very big power pick that did very well, but it just was not enough. I think game number 2 is what happens when it is enough.
Yeah.
You just got a chance to see Red the Swift just go off and really kind of lead his team to victory. But now maybe it's a side thing. Maybe it's just every team that's on the blue side is going to win tonight. But to be more like calculated and analytical, this draft will actually be much different because Malphite is out of there, and instantly it goes back to Swain.
Yeah, wee baby Seamus now, with his Swain not banned away from him, is going to head on back to that pick, and I can't blame him. He was quite a force in game 1, and in game 2 even managed to survive the laning phase decently well. Finley got super far ahead. At one point he had 1/3 of the gold that the entire enemy team did, but it wasn't really because of a dominating laning phase. It was more because of solid roams going down to the bottom and top lane, and then some good picks in the mid game. So it wasn't really because of wee baby Seamus falling out of form, and to see him back on a champion that he's obviously comfortable on and that he obviously can do well on, I think is really big. However, we have not talked yet. We've glossed a little bit over the fact that Rush just picked Graves. Rek has been on that this whole series, and now it's stolen away from him. I wonder what he's going to go to here.
Well, I mean, we can always wait to see another Rengar. It hasn't been banned, but shouldn't be the go-to here. If you're just looking at Rek, wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like an Elise. Sometimes you just have to put that in your champion pool because it is actually just such a good champion. Rek'Sai also possible, and we can wait a little bit to see that because it looks like we're going to get support and top lane locked in here with a Lulu Maokai.
And already we've got the beginnings of a good team fighting composition from Chicago, which they used to really great effect in game 1. Red the Swift does have the Varus available. I'd be surprised, actually, if he doesn't go for it. He's had such great success on it this series, but maybe they don't want to build around a Varus composition this time around. Maybe they want to go a different direction with it. It'll be interesting to see. I'm thinking whatever it is that Red the Swift does choose to pick up is going to be one of the most important picks for Cincinnati because this guy really has been such a focal point of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. The focal points also have been primarily around objectives, and each team that has secured more of them by the 10-minute mark goes on to win the game. Cincinnati has taken the first dragon, both games 1 and 2. So maybe picking a high, dragon priority jungler is going to be their ticket to success here. Now, you're not going to expect anything super, super crazy, but I guess you never do expect super crazy things. So I would expect to see something just along the line of a lethality 80 jungler. Kha'Zix is not banned, and so I think that's where you'd go because we haven't seen that champion banned out in games 1 and 2.
And I would just like to
take...
Oh, Ivern. That's cool.
Okay, that's just like literally the opposite
supportive
of everything I just said.
Still strong in the current meta, though, to be fair. It leans even more into the team fighting orientated composition that they've built for themselves, into the defensive, keep the Swain alive, keep whatever carry Kvar picks here alive sort of fighting that they're going to be doing. That's really interesting for sure. And I mean, Ivern has some decent pressure early on. Root Collar has great range. Misfortune, even more team fighting power. All right, well, the game plan for Chicago here is pretty evident from draft.
Wow. Yeah, that is all going to be about the biggest, baddest team fights you can possibly get. Now they do need to make sure that they do, put their crowd control in the right spot, because they do not have an overwhelming abundance of it. You really do need to lock people down for them to take full damage from things like Swain walking through them with his Nevermore on, and then you also need, them standing in the middle of Misfortune. I almost, harken back to the days of yore, Octavian, when champions like a Mumu strode across Summoner's Rift. That would be a super sick pick to see here. However, alas, that is not what we do see on our screen. And of course, across the board to Cincinnati, they're kind of just going with the, okay, well, we don't want to give Rek his grave, so we're going to take that one instead of the Rengar, and I like switching that up. Rengar didn't seem like it was really having that much of an impact. I like that they still get Varus on Red the Swift, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's going to be a very strong power spike, but the Alistar is the real question mark for me.
Especially picking it into a lane that you already know is going to have a Lulu. That is a pick that I personally would go for into an Alistar. Like, oh, they picked Alistar? I'm going to go Lulu. Lulu's really, really good into hard engage melee supports like that. She can harass them in lane with a greater range, and she has the ability to shut down a hard engage by turning you into a cupcake or a squirrel, both of which are pretty bad for your ability to keep chain CC going. But one way or another, we're going to have to see how this breaks once we get into the match itself. Before we do that, though, there are a few quick shout-outs I'd like to make to some of our sponsors, as well as mentioning that we are hiring right now at the Collegiate Star League for the position of social media manager. So if you're interested in joining our ever-growing team, head on over to cstarleague.com and get a bit more information on how you can do just that. Our sponsors, though, I should get to them. First of the three will be Band Gaming. They are our social app here at the CSL, and they will allow you to create things such as groups, calls, chats, polls, boards, calendar functions, tons of different functionality in that app, all of which is useful for getting your friends together. You can find that on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Twitch.tv is another one of our sponsors, and I'm assuming you're relatively familiar with them, given that you are listening to my voice right now through their wonderful streaming platform. And our final but not least sponsor is Asus Gaming, who are purveyors of everything esports, from mice to keyboards, from motherboards to laptops, and from routers to graphics cards. If you need it, you can find it there. That's all for the sponsors here, folks. We're going to play a quick commercial break and then get into the match. Give us just about a minute and a half here, and we will be right back with you.
I see the light inside you, brighter than the skies. Hold on, just let us escape and fly away tonight. We have the world in our sight, and I know together we'll be alright. Can you see forever we will go?
Good afternoon, good evening, or good night, everybody. My name is Octavian. I am joined here by Rapid Casting, and we are in Onto the Rift for the final match of the series here between Chicago and Cincinnati. And if, like me, you cannot contain your excitement for this match, why not let us know? Tweet us over at twitter.com/CStarLeague, or if you're interested, you can tweet either myself or my co-caster here at our respective Twitter handles, which you'll find in the bottom left of our wonderful overlay right there. Onto the Rift, though, we've got a 5-man spread from both sides. Pretty standard stuff, and likely nothing too exciting. This is the final game, after all, and nobody really wants to risk too much when so much is on the line.
That is very true. So everybody's just setting up a safe line of scrimmage, and interesting to see this Ivern pick come out here. It hasn't really been focused in either the pick or the ban phase, and now it's going to be running the double tree composition. I was excited to see maybe triple plant if you put a Zyra in the support role, but we are just going to have 2 trees, a bird to sit in them, and I don't know if Lulu's going to be like tending the grove or something, but there's a metaphor going on there. And of course on the other side, well, I don't really think there's too much synergy as far as lore goes between those champions, but it is at least very strong picks all around, with the possible exception of Brian Mann's Alistar. He was getting caught out pretty frequently before.
And as well as that, I just don't really like the Alistar pick into the Lulu here, at least not for the laning phase. However, it does provide strong engage and strong peel potentially as well for Red the Swift, so it's going to be a good team fighting pick for sure once you get into the mid and late game. I just worry a little about the laning phase. However, Red the Swift and Brian have demonstrated that laning against Kavar and Tankman is something they do well. Throughout the series, win or lose, they have consistently at least won the bottom lane. And every time, it's been Red the Swift on this Varus. So we'll see how much of the formula was Red's Varus and how much of it was the Zyra that Brian Mann has previously been running.
Just going to keep an eye on a couple of things, primarily, when we go through this game. First off is going to be how well this Varus does. Red the Swift has been popping off on that Varus, so really do need to keep an eye on that. Also going to be keeping an eye comparing these junglers. Rek just went in and Smite stole this blue buff away from the rush. Unless you're really on top of your buffs and you know where the enemy jungler or the enemy Ivern is going, you're kind of going to have to expect that to happen, just because Ivern does not jungle the same way traditional junglers do.
Yeah, and that could be a little rough actually for Rush, as Graves does burn a decent amount of mana with his jungle clear. However, he should be okay. Just going to cost him a little bit in terms of level and tempo and all that, as Brian Mann comes in for the knockup on the Tank Man. We'll see which one is truly the top man, as exhausts are traded back and forth. Brian Mann getting slowed on the way out as well, and it's about an even trade on the bottom lane this time, which is not what it's been in previous games, so that's an improvement actually for Chicago's duo lane.
Yep, I mean, well, okay, I'm actually a little bit more interested, Octavian, in this top lane fight. Anytime you get like tank versus tank battles, it's like, okay, well, it's going to take them an hour and a half to get down to 2 HP. But when they get there, it can actually be pretty exciting. However, you're not really going to see that matter too much, because they both do have all 3 charges of their corrupting potions running. So you'll be healing all the way back up to full, and probably won't see too much out of that lane just yet.
It's looking like the Zyra was a decent portion of the magical elixir that kept Red the Swift and Brian Mann in the lead in the bottom lane, because without it, they are starting to fall behind. They're getting shoved in under the turret. It's a small CS lead starting to grow for Kfar, and that was a key ingredient in victory in game number 2. Ghibli Studios, though, as you say, in the top lane, the fights get pretty close once they do manage to burn through those first few thousand hit points, and Ghibli has to flash away.
All right, well, at least for the time being, I think the biggest thing, okay, well, I'm still watching this top lane, Octavian. There is a flash for Figor. If he wants to, he can get a little bit crazy up in this top lane. However, most likely not going to. So that's going to really change my position to the bottom lane. Look at Brian Mann.
Kavar is almost out of mana, though, and yeah, Brian Mann's going to be flashing in for the first blood off of that new E. The stun doing some good work. However, it is traded back at least. Tank Man's going to claim one. Ivern now joining the fray, and Red the Swift is going to be okay. Rek doesn't really have a lot of damage on this pick. It's not the Graves that he's been playing for the rest of the series. And it's a 1-for-1 trade. Support's actually claiming both kills.
Yeah, I was gonna say, those are some bloodthirsty supports. Big fan of Brian, man. He really just went all in on that. Courage of the Colossus also came up really, really big, as it allowed him to just stay alive for a second longer, and then of course led to his untimely demise. But hey, either way, supports getting in on the action. I love to see it. However, what's really going to be cool is to see how the itemization differs here. If Red the Swift wants to just go toe-to-toe, then he too can pick up a serrated Dirk. However, he can also just go for a Tear of the Goddess if he wants to just make sure that he can stay in lane. Instead, yeah, just going to make sure that he can trade.
Yeah, and I think that's the right call, too, because going for the less lane-focused Tear of the Goddess would have just been ceding control of that lane entirely, which is something I don't think they can afford to do, because Game 2 was predicated so much on the success of the bottom lane. They need to replicate that if they want to have a similar match. And already the game is going a lot slower than the last match did, so that's a good start for Chicago. They're not... Oh my god, Rush, please. I'm trying to make a point. Stop dying to the wolves. Okay, he stopped dying to the wolves, but he actually might find an Ivern in his jungle if he goes back into it. No, he's okay.
Well, really okay, maybe a little bit of an overstatement. He's okay for now. Got to keep an eye on exactly how that does transpire. The big thing for me, like I said during the pick and ban phase, has been the objectives and really who does control things early on. Chicago has, I believe, lost Dragon in both of the games so far this series, so it's really going to be a struggle, because even in the last game, I don't think they ever got any objectives. So a little bit rough there. Cincinnati on top of that in game number 2. See if they can continue it as this game continues.
And speaking of just general map control and such, as we see Rex up in the mid lane here, just for, I guess, some wave clear, some presence, letting him know that he's not going to leave that lane alone. Ghibli Studios and Figor duking it out. But I do want to just bring everybody's attention down to the minimap for just a moment. You know, it's a place not many of us are familiar with glancing at, but there is a pink ward deep in Cincinnati's jungle right now. Yeah, Cincinnati's jungle right now. Placed there by Chicago, I believe? No, sides have been swapped. Yeah, we're a best of 3. Deep in Chicago's jungle, placed there by Cincinnati. That was in the same place last game. Yep. That pink ward has been doing duty across the entirety of the series, really. And meanwhile, we have a teleport down to the bottom side. We may have to get back to that point about vision later, because we've got action. It's a stun on the tank man. The follow-up ulti as well. A piercing arrow lands, but they just don't have anything left in the tank to keep going after that man. And Brian Man's going to toss Kavar away.
Yeah, really unfortunate. Red the Swift was only level 5 there. If I check his experience, he's over half of the way to level 4, or to level 6. You don't level up in reverse here.
Yeah, it doesn't go backwards.
Yeah, so if he had been level 6 there, guaranteed 100% kill. Also, if Brian Man had maybe saved his Pulverize until the hook came off from Figor, he would have been able to chain that CC as well. So maybe that's my Captain Hindsight kicking in, but there were potentials there, given maybe slightly different situation. But either way, no deaths coming just yet, other than those 2 bloodthirsty support kills early on. And the game continues. However, it is Cincinnati who are putting much more pressure down here on the bottom lane. Red the Swift Severa is continuing to look spectacular.
To be fair, though, Chicago has pulled ahead very slightly in terms of CS across multiple lanes. They've got a 10 CS lead in both mid and top. And as Kavar cleans out this minion wave, he's going to pull a bit ahead as well. And that was how Game 1 looked for them. And Game 1 was a pretty good victory for Chicago, so this is a much better way to start the match than we've seen from them in the past. Finley again getting bullied out, actually flashed away and glanced at his summoner spell, so we didn't get to see it because of directed camera, but Finley did burn a summoner to get out of that engagement.
Yep, so no longer will have that flash. Finley a little bit more mortal this time around, but Ghibli Studios going in onto Figor up top.
Yeah, Figor held up by that arcane smash, using the last of his mana, though, to get away to that wall as exhaust onto the graves. Actually, a flash away as well. That seems perhaps a little overly defensive.
Yeah, hasty decision-making there by the Rush, just kind of living up to his name, but either way, he does survive, so maybe that's what's more important. He saved double buffs, which he might have been like a little bit worried about donating over, so maybe better safe than sorry in that regard.
And that's something that we've seen a few times from Rush. I mean, back in Game 1, he was being hunted away from his own red buff and flashed over the wall into the Krug camp when perhaps it wasn't necessary, casting our minds all the way back to the first game. Rush seems to have pretty hit or miss early games. I mean, game 2, he was really solid, constantly showing up where he needed to be. But game 1, it was the opposite story, and we really have yet to see where it's going to break this match. But it seems to be, as goes Rush, so goes the team, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could be it. I would say how goes, Red the Swift. Okay, well, that's not actually a good decider because he did well both games.
Yeah.
But either way, if you want to look at one player to decide who how things works out, maybe Rec on the other side. We'll see if he can turn things around.
Here. Rush is gone, as it's University of Chicago able to just field more resources overall to the fight, realizing that whichever way that fight goes, Dragon is likely to follow thereafter, and thus willing to pull in the teleports and all that. And they're going to go for an air Drake right off the back of it.
Well, maybe there's something to what you said, Octavian, with the junglers and just following their successfulness. Rush getting taken out immediately leads to Rec being able to secure Dragon for his team, and this is going to be the first Dragon that Chicago's been able to take this series.
And we'll see whether that success continues to follow them. They have, at the very least, even if they do take home this series, lost their perfect record. They have lost now a single game here in the ULoL Campus Series, but Baby Seamus roaming to the top side is going to find a face full of magic damage, be it from an anchor or from a bat. However, he does have a lot of sustain under the turret, and Finley's going to go down! Oh no,
what?
Overestimating their ability to dive a Swain, a classic error, really.
Man, that's actually just so impressive. Wee Baby Seamus, shout out to Catalyst of Aeons. I always call it Catalyst the Protector because I'm a little bit old school there, but in case you guys never read the tiny text, you just know basically kind of what it does. Basically, as you take damage, you get mana, but spending mana restores 20% of the cost as health. So that's why you go with first item on Swain, because you're spending mana to get health in 2 ways at the same time, and it really does just heal you up a deceptive amount.
Yeah, specialization paying off huge dividends in League of Legends, as it always does. And Wee Baby Seamus able to survive the 2v1 dive, thrive even during it. Survive and thrive during the dive. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Well played, Octavian. Big fan of alliteration, consonants, assonance, all those good things.
But meanwhile in the bottom lane, Red the Swift being bullied backwards, means the CS lead over to the Misfortune, but they don't look like they want to keep that trend going. Tankman going to be engaged on here as Figor teleports in behind him, and that's a kill going back over to Cincinnati, who are not willing to take this game lying down.
I was imagining in my brain an entire team of college students just lying down playing League of Legends. Sounds like a college student kind of thing to do.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I've been to my fair share of LAN parties, Octavian, but we'll see if Wee Baby Seamus.
There's not a lot of damage here, though, to back this up. They've got the CC to hold him down, but he's Swain. He can simply just walk out unless there's somebody there to cut through those massive regenerating hit points. So he'll be just fine. It doesn't really cost them anything, to be fair, but still, the advantage of Swain.
Just keeping an eye, watching the majestic bird that is Swain clear an entire wave of minions with other birds. Beatrice, his bird, hanging out on his shoulder, right along with him.
I just wonder if they're all named Beatrice.
Yeah, he
he's
does have
got more than
actually a
just
bunch
one
of
bird.
different birds. Yeah. Maybe it's like, well, I mean, theoretically, yeah, I guess maybe he just names all of his birds Beatrice. Never thought about that one, Octavian. You're blowing my mind a little bit here.
Your mind really needs to be less easily blown than that, because that, I don't know. I don't know if that deserves that level of amazement, my friend. But thank you. I'm glad I could provide entertainment to you, at the very least to you.
The entire cast is entertainment you provide to me, Octavian.
Oh, this is why I like casting this guy. You see, he respects me. He's loyal. He's smart.
Gotta respect the entertainment.
Gately Studios and Figor are gonna duke it out up top lane, but can't really expect too much action, at least not for a little while, from these two. Nautilus versus Maokai, one of the quintessential tank lanes, and this game is holding much more evenly than any of the other two in the series did at this point. Really hasn't fallen one way or another yet, though, to be fair, I would say that Chicago has whatever little lead there is to be had, And oddly enough, it's mainly because of this bottom lane, where they've had so many problems throughout the rest of the series. They're now having strength, which could be really, really huge for them.
The eternal battle of the tank fight in the top lane rages on as we look for maybe the next big point of contention. Next dragon coming up will be an air drake. There's the misfortunate bottom lane, and Red the Swift's going in.
Kavar immobilizing himself for the duration of that ult makes himself an easy target for the Alistair combo. However, he does have a Lulu to keep himself safe. And an Ivern around the corner. They may yet go for this dive. It would be kind of risky. They've burned a lot of resources already. There's no summoners on the Misfortune. There's no Lulu ulti, but they're going to go for the dive nonetheless. Red the Swift goes down. Kavar claims the kill. There's a teleport in from Ghibli Studios, and Brian Man will soon follow, though his ulti is making that difficult. In the end, he doesn't go down. And it's a 2-for-1 trade as Ivern, taking of the turret a little too long, eventually did perish, but they'll take the turret on the way out as well, and that will be in favor of Chicago.
Yeah, especially getting the turret there, a big win in the objective game. And for Chicago, this looks all too familiar, Octavian, to game number 1, where maybe they didn't have quite as strong an early game, but this time around, especially Wee Baby Seamus's Swain did switch the cleanse summoner spell for an exhaust, and it's just really working out so well. You saw that top lane dive, just barely surviving. Really, really sick stuff. So looking good for Chicago as they look to close out the series and advance to face off against Columbia College. Either way, they will have their work cut out for them, but they do have to win this game to get there.
Oh man, and Kavari and Tankman even show up top lane in time to stop the slow push that Figor was putting on, so a turret not yet even traded back for Cincinnati, which is pretty big. Means they're going to have to wait on that gold. Admittedly, it is likely to come to their pockets at one point or another, as the turret is heavily wounded. Only 1 or 2 Varus autos will do the trick, but you've got to wait till they can at least get them up there to do that trick. We may have an engage here onto Maokai. Rush, though, not doing very well this game. Doesn't really have a lot of damage to put into this fight. Meanwhile, though, Red the Swift caught out between 3 members of the enemy team goes down a lot faster than the Maokai was.
Wow. Yikes. That's where all those posts about, AD carries feeling vulnerable when their off-meta support goes roaming to win the game. Well, this is one of those opportunities where Red the Swift really did not respect the fact that he did not have a support with him and walked up, got taken down, and that's going to allow Chicago to take their second turret of the game.
And one of the real strengths that Chicago has had this game is that their solo laners have been so difficult to gank. We've just saw 2 attempted plays there from Cincinnati. The first one obviously was onto the Maokai and was at about the same time as Varus went down and didn't really end up with much. And then they actually rotated mid lane, trying to make something happen with Wee Baby Seamus, who simply walked away. These laners, the Maokai and the Swain, are so opposite of vulnerable, so difficult to take down, unlike the Varus, unlike perhaps even the Graves. And it's paid really big dividends for Chicago this game.
Certainly has. Have you ever done stock investments, Octavian?
No, nothing too serious, I can't say.
So
but I see where you're going with this.
When I was like 2 years old, my grandmother bought me like 10 shares of stock in Wrigley's, the chewing gum company.
Oh, yeah.
That was back when it was like just starting out. And now it's actually worth like some insane amount of money. I'm just like, good call, Grandma. Literally paying dividends. So it does show that if you are smart, those dividends, they're pretty nice. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, chew on that.
Is that like the Wrigley slogan or something?
I don't know, actually, off the top of my head. I can't say that my knowledge extends to the Wrigley slogan. I apologize for that, everybody. I'll try and improve for the future. I was just making a bad joke.
Huh. Well, no, I don't think that is the Wrigley slogan. Is there a Wrigley slogan? This is what you guys can go out there and tweet at us. Because I need to know these things.
Definitely.
League of Legends, important, but also Wrigley slogans.
Tweet that at Rapid Casting. Tweet that over and over at him. Make him absolutely sick of it. Make him regret ever bringing it up. And thus
Okay, well, we might be looking for a dive here, Octavian. Sorry to cut you off there, but I got a little bit excited that something might actually happen. Looks like I was a little bit overly optimistic.
Are you sure something might actually happen? Do you remember which game you watched? I mean, to be fair,
Well,
it is game 3 in the series, and both of these teams must have some respect for each other because they both put on a clinic on the other. Game 1 was decidedly over to Chicago, and 2 just seemed easy for Cincinnati. So now here in game 3, neither side willing to take risks, and as such, neither side really getting that far ahead. Though a lot of pings on Wreck. He may have overextended taking out that ward, but Finley trying to kite around through the jungle to get an angle on him is going to get caught out, turned into a cupcake, and unable even to ult because of it, will go down. Now Brian Man, caught in the middle of the enemy team, will eventually be turned into mincemeat unless he flashes over to the safety of his turret. A flash forward from Rex to keep the chase going. There's a beautiful misfortunal catching onto both of the duo laners here from Cincinnati, and Chicago clean up a fight.
wow, Chicago just dominating there. Really got to give some credit to the Wombo combo ability. Ivern in there on top of Lulu. So getting, let's see, getting Daisy knockup, then getting Lulu knockup, then Kavar insane misfortune damage all over everything. Just looked so good, Octavian. Well, good if you are a Chicago fan. If you're from Cincinnati and you're still, like, you know, living the high life from game number 2, well, your high life's going to have to take a detour down to ground level because things are looking a little rough.
Yeah, and what's the way back into this one for Cincinnati, since they are decidedly now no longer in the driver's seat, if they ever even were in this game? Since a lot of their aces in the hole from game 1 seem to have been nullified. Finley's not nearly as powerful as he was last time around. In fact, wee baby Seamus back on this Swain is doing incredibly strong. And Red the Swift actually lost out on laning phase, which is something that hasn't happened for the rest of the series.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Octavian. Red the Swift, the really big sort of, you know, he's not really the guy holding the smoking gun. It's not like you can blame him for all of his team's difficulties, but I mean, they could really use a strong AD carry right about now. Bottom lane, Finley versus Seamus.
And Finley gonna have to flash away, as that's pretty indicative of how this game has gone. Finley v Seamus. Finley flash away. Ghibli Studios head butted backwards. A sentence I didn't anticipate saying today, really.
I was going to say, yeah. Also, should note that there is a big happy candy laying at the red buff that Kavar is going to go ahead and eat up for himself. I really like that about Ivern. If you do use his candy skin, the buffs that are left over also turn into candy. So, really cool touch there. Big fan of the Riot Games skin team.
Oh, so
making
close.
it awesome.
I was about to commend Finley on his placement there with the parallel convergence, and it was still smart, but he just placed it a little too far back so he couldn't land the stun on Kavar. Kavar saw him turn in the corner just in time. And now he's actually going to get chased out of the jungle, having to phase dive over the wall. I don't know if he would have even had that assassination, which is a really big issue, given that this is the point in the game where the assassin's supposed to start killing off AD carries. Wreck getting chased away in the mid lane here, but Red the Swift just doesn't have the damage that he's been used to having this series, and he's gonna go down as Daisy just pounds him into the dirt with fists made of Marskabone.
Is that what they're made of?
I'm assuming. I only have visual reference to go on. I've never actually been able to taste it myself.
Yeah, I myself have never tasted Ivern either, so in the same boat there. But yeah, when you think about it, look at the number of shields. You've got Lulu's shield. You've got Rex Ivern shield from the Trigger Seed. You've also got his other shield from Locket of the Iron Solari, and they're all going to be used to defensively dive.
Kavar got Nautilus open at the start of that fight, but there was literally nothing else thrown at him, and the rest of his team is just running rampant. As he misfortune ults only an Alistair, but that's just fine. That's all they need to do. They're going to go ahead and take the secondary turret, and University of Chicago peel out with a definitive lead this game.
Okay, well, you know, I'm not saying that's the total end of the game, but when you're making plays like that, you really, really have to think to yourself, you know, if you're Cincinnati, what do we do to stop that? Because Red the Swift, the strongest member of the team by far in game number 2, really struggling this game 1 and 4. Even though he's building lethality, that's not going to be nearly enough to get through some of this armor that you're going to start to see out of Rec and Ghibli Studios. So they will not be able to get. Okay, well, we don't actually have any armor from Rec, but Ghibli Studios specifically is going to be God mode this game. So. Kavar, on the other hand, does have an insane amount of lethality. Just look at that Black Cleaver, Yomu's Ghostblade, Edge of the Night. I was thinking if he was going to upgrade to any sort of boots, but no, probably not. He doesn't actually really need to.
Pretty much all the lethality you can reasonably get he's already gotten in that build. Mama Mortius doesn't give lethality anymore, does it? So yeah, that's pretty much all the lethality you can reasonably get without going for some very strange itemization choices. And Kavar is an absolute powerhouse, especially, like, it gets even more poignant when you compare it to where Red the Swift is this game, who's sitting at, like, not even 2 completed items done, 1 and, like, 2/3, as he's had to split up his item build to be able to allocate space for that tier in there.
Yeah, another thing that's really just going to slow him down there, Red the Swift. Tiers don't deal damage, Octavian. Otherwise, every time I broke up, I would have so much damage.
Oh, man. That is a dark and depressing way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be under an assault charge just for breaking up with someone if Tiers did damage. Anyways. On the other side.
Or I would just, like, you know, be that guy that, you know, goes to play League immediately after something bad happens in my life and just, like, feeds super hard because I just, like, can't focus.
Hook from
I have a lot of people who, like,
it's okay.
Okay, yeah.
It's a hook onto a Swain. Nothing's happening.
Well, I was gonna say, if Igor was being a little bit optimistic, he's like, "I got him, guys." And everybody else on the team is like, "No, we actually don't want to have anything to do with this."
That's a Swain. That's a very fed Swain. We don't want to touch that. Maybe though the Ivern. You can take a bite out of his cupcake, but he does manage to flash away from the Alistair combo, so he's okay. Still though, flash off the Ivern without much invested. That's a positive trade for Cincinnati, something they haven't had a lot of this game. I don't know.
Positive trades. I mean, we'll see. Can they catch out Figor though? Not looking good.
Figor is relatively tanky though, but Rush is not. If he keeps trying to help his friend out here, he may be in some trouble. Yeah, having to flash out of the Misfortune ulti, and eventually Figor does go down. And now the secondary turret in the top lane is under fire. Okay, Kavar tossed a double up, and that's all he needed.
Oh my
wow.
God. Wow, that double up damage a little bit on the strong side, Octavian.
Yes, indeed.
Oh my God. Yes, 7-1 now, Kavar. And while Finley is going to try to take this turret down under this back door
approaching
protection,
Maokai.
I'm not even sure he can do it.
And meanwhile, Baron is going down, and with Kavar around, this thing is going to melt very quickly. Not to mention wee baby Seamus able to keep that ulti running. Thanks to the benefit of the
At least
buff.
Finley Finley made it out alive. That's a honorable mention, right?
I suppose. An honorable mention is really the only thing that we can attribute to Cincinnati this game, which is such a change of pace from game number 2. It's like an entirely different team took to the field in game 2, because this looks like more of the same from 1.
Yeah, I agree totally. This does harken back to that game number 1, just no real signs of life. A 10,000 gold lead, Octavian, as we crest into the 30-minute mark, and oh, here comes Kavar. Oh, Finley.
When the 80 carry assassinates the mid lane is when you know things have gone south.
Somewhere out there's somebody complaining about the weakness of 80 carries right now, Octavian.
There always is. There always is. That's not to say 80 carries are in the best place they've ever been, but it is still possible to get Kavar levels of stupid damage in this game. And Kavar's got to be feeling good about that, because he really hasn't had an opportunity to shine throughout this series. Game 1, he was kind of just part of the winning team. Didn't really contribute all that much on his Twitch. Game 2, he was shut out, but Game 3, he's doing things like Misfortune ulting across an entire enemy team, melting through an ulting Alistair, not even caring about that unbreakable will. And the moniker of Legendary is well earned.
Well, I mean, they say it for a reason, Octavian, and that is a legendary performance. Last game, and really the game before it, Kavar was the strong, or Red the Swift was the strong 80 carry, but now Kavar is having his time to shine.
And Rush is getting chunked, feeling the shine off of that Misfortune. Something fierce. There's a flash forward for the double kill. The Nexus turrets are under fire. Here's Redemption just to make sure everybody's topped off nicely. And the Nexus will implode in on itself in just a moment or two as we finish out the series with a 2-1 victory going over to Chicago, who are going to go on to face British Columbia, I believe, right? No, CC. Hang on. Let me recheck the brackets here real quick, just to make sure I'm not lying to you fine folks. Columbia College, not British Columbia, just Columbia College. My apologies, who are going to be quite a challenge for them. But it looks like they might be set and ready to handle it with their performance in that Game 3.
Yeah, to be fair, Columbia College would be quite the handle for just about anyone. They are certainly, one of the stronger teams out there, along with guys like we saw Maryville play the other day. Guys like who was it? Carnegie Mellon, a big PowerPoint that I was watching them talk about on the Riot ULoL stream. Other teams like classical examples like Robert Morris University coming back with the vengeance. Honestly, looking unstoppable so far. So just so many. UBC, another big name to throw out there. So many really, really big powerhouses in this season of the ULoL Campus Series. So if you guys like today's games, well, there's plenty more where that came from, because this is just a round of 16. We are closing things out in really all of our brackets, West, North, South, and East. There's a lot going on in the ULoL Campus Series. You can find more information about that by heading over to cstarleague.com or by clicking on that bracketology link in chat. That's what's going to give you all the information on which schools are playing who and how things are shaping up.
All right, well, with that said and all of that done as well, that's going to be it for us for now today so far at the Collegiate Star League. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel, though. We are going to be going live again in another few hours with more round of 16 ULoL Campus Series coverage. My name is Octavian. I have been joined by Rapid Casting. You can find me at Octavian Zilch and Rapid over here at Rapid Casting on Twitter. And please do tap that follow button if you enjoyed the casting today. We'll be talking to you guys later in just a few hours. But for now, y'all have a good night.